Welcome back to our RUCHED YouTube channel. In today's class, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful draped shirt dress. Okay, it's an overlap dress as we have seen, and it has this beautiful collar and a placket that just goes all the way to the overlap in the front. You can see the lovely drapes that we have on this dress as well, and then we have some pleats at the hem of the dress. It's a very beautiful dress and it's a very packed tutorial. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so this is a really beautiful dress. It's a short dress. It may look complicated, but we are going to simplify this as much as possible. There are several ways you can actually get this, but I'm going to be teaching us one of the simplest way that I know you can make this dress. Okay, so now I'm going to be drafting it on paper. We're going to be using slash and spread method to achieve the pleat and fullness that we have on the dress. So now I have my paper folded into two, so I'm going to be using this paper for both my front and back actually. So now what I'm going to start with is my shoulder, just like we normally do. So my shoulder is 15 inches, whereby 2 is 7.5, so I have 7.5 inches here. On that point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. For my neck width, I'm working with 3 inches, and then for the back, I'm working with 1 inch. So for the front, I'm working with 7 inches. It's a V neckline, and then from the shoulder again, I'm going to mark my armhole line, which is 8.5. So let me just connect it so that it makes more sense. So this is my back neckline, this is my front neckline, this is my shoulder slope, and this is my armhole line. So on the armhole line, I'm going to take my bust measurement. The bust is 40, divided by 4 is 10, 10 divided by 10. Okay, so I'm taking the 10 inches. It's a free dress, like I said, it's not going to be tight, so I want it to be a bit loose, so I'm adding half an inch for ease. Okay, half an inch on a half scale means multiply by 4. Remember, this is just half of either front or back, so we have 2 halves for front and 2 halves for back, so that's going to be an allowance of 2 inches. You can add more if you want, and then I'm adding 1 inch for my seam allowance. So you can just take these measurements straight down, or you can shape it. Okay, but for me, I think I'm just going to leave it as it is. Or even if I'm going to shape the waistline, it's not going to be so tightly fitted, because like I said, it's a free dress. So the waistline is 16 inches, and then on that point, I'm going to take my waist measurement. So the waist is 32. 32 divided by 4 is 8. So this is 8 inches. And then I'm going to add around 1.5 inches for heat for that. I don't want it too far from my bust measurement, so I have 1 inch for my seam allowance there, and then I'm going to connect it. So like I said, you don't have to shape it like this, just shaping mine. So the full length that I want for this dress is 34 inches. Like I said, it's a short dress, so I want it to stop at around 34 inches or even 32. I don't want it so long, so I'm just going to leave it at around 33 inches, which is here. So the front is shorter than the back, so my front is stopping at 33 while my back is extending to 36, which is the total length of this paper. So like I said, here I'm just going to take my hip measurement, which is 40 as well, and then I'm going to add seam allowance and ease to that. Okay, so I'm just literally taking what I took on the bust, and then I'll connect that straight down. And this shaping is totally up to you and how free you want it to be. So now this is going to be my front, and this is going to be my back. So like I said, I'm cutting on the same paper, so I'm just going to cut out the back neckline first. I'm going to shape my shoulder slant, cut out my armhole, and then this side. So I'll just place that on the fabric and cut out my back on fold first. So after cutting the back pattern, I'll bring it back for me to use it to cut out, to shape out my front. So you can see this is the length for the back, I'm not cutting it off yet. I'm just shaping this side so that I can use this same pattern to cut out my back. So after cutting the back on my fabric, I'm going to bring it back so that we can modify it to our front pattern. So this is what it looks like for now. Okay, so I have cut my back. Now the next thing is to cut the length for my front. Remember, the front is shorter by 3 inches compared to the back. So now this is the length for my front, and then I'm going to cut my front neckline as well. And this paper is on fold, so by the time I cut it and then I open it out, this is what I will have. Okay, this is what I have. So the next thing now is to shape this front. So like you can see, it's like an overlap. The front is like an overlap. So for the overlap on my hemline, I'm going to come up on the hem, I'm going to measure around 10 to 12 inches up, depending on where you want it to start from. So I think I'm just going to mark around 11 inches up here. Okay, so now from my neckline, this is where I'm going to join my overlap to. So you can use your freehand to do this, or you can use a curve if you want. So you can see I'm just trying to get something really smooth and nice with my freehand. Okay, a collar is going to go there, so you don't want it too sharp, you don't want it like this, so that your collar can just blend in smoothly like that. A placket, sorry, placket. So now this is what I have, and then I'm just going to cut that part off before I start my slash and spread. So I'm cutting this side, like this, and now this is what my front is looking like. So like I said, you can use whatever method you like, but this is a method that I feel will be very easy for us to understand. So the first one I'm going to be working on is the pleats that we have on the lower pattern. So I'm just going to mark around 2 inches first, or 2.5 inches. We have like 3 pleats there, so between each pleat I want it to have like 1 1/4 interval. So I'm marking the 1 1/4 for the first one, 1 1/4 for the second one, and then I'm doing the third one as well. So you can have any interval you want. Okay, so this is the first place, second place, third place, and this is my hem. So what I've marked on this side, I'm going to go ahead and mark it on the other side as well. I first mark 2.5 inches before I start my pleats. Okay, so after that I'll start to mark the 1 1/4 interval that I marked on the other side as well, and then I did that for 3 pleats. I hope you understand that. So after doing this, let me place it like this. Okay, so what you need to do next now is to make them into a straight line. So I don't have a long ruler, so I'm just going to use this to note the midpoint so that I can have a straight line. So after this now, I'm going to take my ruler and then I'm going to draw a straight line to connect them together. So now we are going to be slashing these lines to introduce the volume that we need for our pleats. So your pleats can be as much as you want, it's totally up to you. Okay, so these are the pleats now, and I'm going to be labeling it 1 2 3 so that I don't get confused when I slash it open. You can have more, but I'm just having these 3. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to introduce the volume on this curved part. Okay, so now to do this, I'm going to, for this particular slash and spread, we are going to be cutting it completely, but for the next one we are doing here, we're just going to be cutting, but we're not going to cut it completely to the other side. So now what I'm going to do, this paper is quite big, so I'm trying to take it in bits so that we can get it. So now, depending on the amount of pleats that you want to have on this area as well, but I'm going to first mark around 1 1/2 inches away from this, or 1 inch, because I'm still going to add a placket there like I said, and then between each of my pleats I want it to have like 1 1/2 inches interval, or 1 1/4 as well. So I'm just marking it like that. So from here now I'm going to connect like this. all the way to around the armhole area, okay, for the first line. So now for the second one, I'm connecting again all the way to the side, and then for the last one I'm doing the same thing. So what I'm doing now is just introducing volume, more volume to this place, so that I can have drapes around this area. I hope you understand what I'm trying to do. So now that I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and bring in a fresh pattern, and then I'm going to be slashing and spreading this on it. But this is what the pattern looks like for now. This is the upper part, these are the slash lines that we just created, and then this is the pleats that we're going to be having on the lower part. So for the slash and spread, I'm going to start cutting it. So that's why I labeled this. So this is the lowermost part now. I'm cutting it, and then I'm going to be placing it on this fresh pattern, and then I'm just going to hold it down with by gumming it, or you use your masking tape to hold it down. So now I have gummed it down. The next thing now is to cut the first slash, which is labeled number 3. So now before you place it, you're not just going to place it, you're going to determine how much spread you want. That's how much pleats you want. I just want my pleats to be around 1.5 inches by the time I pleat it. So that's going to be 2 multiplied by 2, that's 3 inches. 1.5 by 2. So if you want it to be around 2 inches by the time you pleat, that means you're going to spread this by 4 inches. So I'm spreading mine by just 3 inches, which is 1.5 inches. So what I'm going to do now, from here where the first line stops, I'm going to place my tape through, and then where I have 3 inches, I have my center point as a guide here. I'm just going to place it, and then I'm going to gum it down as well, which is what I'm going to do for every other one. Okay, so now I've gummed it down, and then I have 3 inches all around. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and slash open the next one, and then create a 3 inches gap between this one and the number 3, and then I'm going to gum it down as well. So you can see I'm trying to take this step by step so that we can understand it well. So you can see the 3 inches from where this stops. I'll mark 3 inches, and then I'm going to place this like this, and then gum it down. Okay, so now for the last one, I'm just going to place the next one after the 3 inches, and I'm going to place it down. So like I said earlier, for the pleats here, you can see that we are cutting our slash lines completely, but for these lines that we have here, is not going to be cut completely. So when we finish this one, we'll just move to the next slash lines. So now that I have closed it, I want to shape the side. So to shape the side, you just close up the spread that you have, and then I'm going to use my scissors to cut it so that I don't have any shortage. Okay, so after closing this one, I'm going to go over to the next one now, and then try to close the pleat. So after closing it, I'm going to go ahead and shape it as well. So that is how I'm going to be shaping the sides. And then for the last one, I'm going to repeat the same thing. I'll try to close it up now, and then I'm going to shape it to meet up with what I have on this upper part. So the same thing I've done here, I'll repeat it on the other side as well. So now it is cut out. The next thing now is to start to cut this new slash line that we have. So this slash line now, I'm just going to cut and then stop at the tip so that I can spread it, and I'm going to be spreading it directly on my fabric. You can also spread on your paper if you have a large paper that can take it all at once. So now from here, I'm just going to take my scissors and then cut. So when you are cutting, when you're almost getting to the tip, you stop. Okay, so after stopping, you're just going to spread it like this. You're not going to cut it out completely. And then for the next one as well, I'm going to cut, and when I get to the tip, I'm going to stop. So after cutting it like this, I'm going to go ahead and spread it on my fabric. So I will spread it on the floor. I'm going to show us how I'm going to spread this, because this is going to be quite big. So I'm cutting the last one now, and then I'm going to stop when I get to the tip as well. I hope you understand this. Okay, so now I have spread it. You can see the slash and spread that we did on the lower part that we cut completely through, and then this is the other one that we are stopping at the tip. So you can see that it was stopped at the tip, and then I've spread it as much as I want. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut this out. Okay, I hope you understand this. We just slashed the lines that we have cut out earlier. Now we just spread this directly on our fabric, and then I'm going to be cutting around it. Okay, so I have gone ahead to cut it, and you can see. So now after cutting it out, this is what it looks like. So the next thing I went ahead to do is to place notches at those slash lines. So let me just raise it up so you can see the notches that I placed there. So these notches are actually very important when you want to form your pleats. It's not going to give you stress, but if you forgot to place your notches, all you just need to do now is to start measuring just like you measured. You first measured your 2.5 inches, and then you measure the 3 inches allowance that you did before you measure the next 1.25 and measure the next 3 inches. But that is going to be stressful, so just place your notch. You can see the notches for the other side as well. Just place your notch when you are done. So now I'm going to move this to the table so that we'll continue with our sewing. Okay, so this is my back that I cut out earlier. So I'm using just 2 yards of fabric for this tutorial. That's why I have it cut like this. So if your fabric is enough, you don't have to have it in 2 places. You don't need to join it into at the center line, at the center back, because there's no zipper coming through here. But because my fabric is small, it's just 2 yards, so for it to be enough for the front, I have to just cut it at the tip so that I can just join it together. So now I'm just going to go ahead and join it together, and then I'll show us how we'll start joining the front. Okay, so now we're on the table, but the pattern is quite big. So what I'm going to do now is to remove my pattern. But before I remove it, I'm just going to show us basically what we want to do now is to pleat with this guide, with this notch that we have. So I'm just going to bring it back to its original design that I started with by just pleating it from notch to notch. So basically that is what I'm doing. If you have been watching our tutorials on slash and spread, this should not be difficult. So I'll just remove the pins now, and then the notches that I placed there is going to guide me on how I'm going to pleat it. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to start pleating it. I'm going to start with the lower one that we slashed through. So just look for your notches just like I said, and then I'm going to make the first pleat from notch to notch on the 2 sides. So that was why I turned my fabric like this, so that we can see it well. So I have made my first notch now, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin it down. So what you want to do is iron as you pleat. Okay, but because this is a tutorial, I'm just going to pleat everything for us to see, and then I'll go ahead to iron it. So now this is my first, then I'll look for the next notch, which is this, and then I'm going to take it from notch to notch again, so you can see the pleats that I'm forming, and then I'm going to go ahead and hold the next pleat together as well. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the third one. So because we have not ironed it, you can see that the pleats are not holding together at the midpoint. So here in the middle again, I'm going to hold this down with a pin, and then I'm going to go ahead and pleat the last one for the lower part. Remember, we created 3 pleats there. So now this is the last pleat, and then I'm going to hold it with my pin as well. So what you want to do now is to take this to your ironing table, and then you go ahead and give it a good press. Okay, so after taking this pleat, now the next pleat you are going to move is to the side. Remember, on the sides as well, we did 3 pleats, but in this case the pleat did not go all the way to our other side, just like we have here. It just stops at one point. So it means you are just going to be taking this pleat on one side. So you can see my pleat, my notch is from here to here. You can see my chalk line here. So what I'm going to do is just to bring it together like this, and then I'm going to hold with a pin. So what this is going to do now is just that it's going to add volume. You can see the drapes that we have along the line that we created for the slash. So after creating that pleat now, I'm going to hold it with my pin, and then I'm going to look for the next notch. That's the big notch here, and then the next one is here. So I'm going to bring them together like this again, and then I'm going to hold with my pin. and here is the last one. So I look for the notch and then move it to the next notch, which is this, and then I'm going to hold it down. So you can see now that we have our original pattern, but now with more fullness. Okay, so this is the overlap side, just like we illustrated it. And then here, remember, we just came down from the lower part, we came up by I think 11 or 11.5 inches, which is what we are going to be back to after taking this plate now. So if you raise your shoulder the way it's supposed to be, remember it was like this when we spread this. Now that we have raised it up, you can see all of this fullness that we have here. That's because of the spread that we did. So you can spread it how much you want depending on what you want. And then this is the 11 inches that we have here. This is the other side. So what we have done here, you're going to repeat it for the other side as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and iron all of this flat. Okay, so now my fabric is ironed. You can see how sharp the pleats are now. You can iron with the steam iron in order not to burn your fabric, because you need your iron to be very hot for you to form these pleats lying very well like this. And then you can see the volume that we have here. So what I'm going to do now is to repeat it for the other side and iron again, so that I can place them on each other, so that we will see how it overlaps. And then we'll go ahead and sew the shoulder and then the side seam together with the back. Okay, so after ironing the other plate, you can see now that it is also laying flat as well. So these other ones, the ones that you don't cut through, you want it to be fluffy like this, so you're not going to iron it. The one I ironed down was the last 3 pleats on the edge. So what you just need to do now is to place them over each other. Remember, it's an overlap, so I'm just going to place it like this and then match it up. And then I'm going to place the other side as well, and then you arrange it very well. So when you arrange it, this is going to be the shoulder, and you can see that you have a lot of drape here because we opened it up with I think I used up to 8 inches for some of it, so it has lots of volume here. So now what I'm going to do now is to bring in the back and then lay it on the front. Okay, so you lay the back on the front. I'm here to join it together, and then you go ahead and sew it on the shoulder. Okay, remember there is a placket that runs through all of them. That's why I'm not sewing it on the side here, so that it can be easy for me. So I'll just take this to the sewing machine now, and then I'm going to join the shoulder together, and then I'll bring it back to show us how to measure and fix the placket. So the shoulder is joined now, as you can see. So we have our front and back together. So now for the collar that I want to work with, okay, it has a standard collar on the neckline, and then it has a placket that runs all through. So for the placket, I'm going to be measuring from the front, okay, from where remember when we were making the curve, where the curve stops, okay, that's from the lower part, from where the 11 inches stops. I'm going to measure from that point, and then I'll measure all the way to the neckline of the back, and then I'm going to measure it again back to the front. Okay, so that's the measurement I'm taking now. And then after taking that measurement, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out on my fabric. So I'm stopping at that point where I started on the other side, and I have about 71 inches here. So I'm going to use that to cut out a long strip of fabric, and then the length is going to be around 75 inches. I'm going to add excess in case I make a mistake in measuring, and then the length is going to be about 2 inches. Okay, so I don't have enough fabric, so I'm just going to join at the center, which is going to be the center back. So I'll just iron it flat. So you can add this thing, you can add interfacing to this, but I'm just going to sew it because of this tutorial. Please add interfacing to yours. I don't have enough interfacing to go around. So I have cut it. You cut 2 of each, one for main fabric and one for lining, and then I reduce the allowance of the back neckline where I joined it. So these are the 2 that I have. You can add interfacing to your lining, like I said, if you have enough. So after this placket, there is also a standard collar at the neckline. I've gone ahead to cut my collar, and the measurements I use for this collar does not go all the way to the front, so I just want it to be around 4 inches to my front. So you can see this is the shoulder. So from the shoulder, I'm just placing my tape on the 4 inches for the front. You can see now. So the collar is going to stop around here for the front, and then from there I'm just going to take the measurements to the back. So I'm starting with measurements at my center back, which is 8.5 inches. So I just need to multiply that by 2 to get my full collar measurement, and I have 17 inches. So it's the 17 inches that I've gone to use to draft this standard collar that I have. I have a tutorial on how you can draft the standard collar already on the channel, so you can see I have 17 inches here, and then I added allowance for sewing it on both sides. So after sewing it on both sides, I'm just going to notch it and then turn it to the other side, and then I'm going to iron it flat. So after ironing, what you're going to do now is to tuck this collar in between. So you tuck it in between your placket. So now, because of the joining here, it's very easy for me to note where my center back is. So I'm just going to place the collar on fold like this as well, and then I'm just going to notch the center back. So after notching the center back, I'm going to place the collar center back against center back, and then I'm going to fold this. I'm going to cover it up with the lining. Okay, so I have my main placket, I have my collar in between, and then I'm going to cover it up with the lining like this, and then I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it. And then the length of my collar is 2.5 inches. The collar can be as long as you want. It's 2.5 inches with allowance. So by the time I sew it, I'm going to be left with around 2 inches. So I'll take this to the sewing machine now, and then I'm going to sew it all around. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew it. As you can see, this is the center back, and I have my notch, and then it is suspended in between the lining and the main body, so you can see it. So what I'm going to do next now is to iron it, which I have done, and then on the other side I went ahead to iron in 1/2 inch seam allowance so that it can be easy for me to sew it. So you can see that I've ironed my allowance as well. So like I said, if you have interfacing, you can add it to it. It will make the work a lot easier for you. So now after doing this, I'm going to bring in my dress, and then I'm going to locate the center back, okay, which is here. So now this center back that I have, I'm going to match it together with the center back. The sewing, that the seam that I have here is going to guide me. So what I'm going to do is just to suspend these rough edges, all the rough edges that I have for the center and the side, and the center of the front as well, the neckline. This is what I'm going to use to finish it off. So I'm just going to put it in between like this, and then I'm going to sew all the way to the front of the first side, and then I'll do that for the second side as well before I join the sides. Okay, so I have sewn it around the neckline. You can see now that it is neat. This is the inner part and this is the outer part. So I'm going to cut off my thread, and make sure you use the matching color of thread. I just use the lilac thread so that we can see what I'm doing very well, and then you go ahead and iron it well. So the last thing I'm going to do now is to place the front and back against each other on the sides. Okay, so now before we go, remember the front side is shorter than the back side. So for the back side, for us to be able to sew it together on the sides, it was shorter by 3 inches. So I'm going to mark the 3 inches like this, upwards like this, and then from there I'm going to shape it to meet up with what I have on my center back. So now here you match it up together, and then you come up by 3 inches. So after coming up by 3 inches, you are going to connect like this, and then you are going to shape it off. You can use your curve for this, or you use your freehand just like I have done. So you can see the shape that we have for the back now. So if you want it to come up more, you just extend this more so that your shape will really show very well. Then after that, I'm going to lay the front and back together, and then I'm going to... Okay, so the side is joined now, as you can see. So this is what the dress is looking like. You can see our collar. So for mine, I measured 4 inches just like I explained. So if you don't want yours to be this much in the front, you can just measure 2 inches or 3 inches and add that to your back measurement, and then it is embedded in our placket. That's why it is looking this neat. Okay, so this is the placket. It just continues all the way to the front, and then it stops where our drape stops. So you can see where the placket stops. So these are the drapes that we formed. Okay, these are the ones that I added, that I cut through, and then I just ironed it down. So I just ironed it that, and then I placed hemming gum inside it because I want it to really lie flat. So if you want yours to be fluffy, you can just leave it as it is, and then you just iron it. So this is what I have, and then I want it to be this flat. That was why I placed that hemming gum on it. And then for the other ones, you can see now that it just starts from here, the volume just reduces as it goes to the other side. That's because we did not cut through. Okay, what we just want is for it to introduce this volume that we have here to the sides of our dress, and that is what it's doing. It's just giving us this extra volume that we have, and it just goes all the way, just like we drew it on the pattern. And then you can see the crisscross, that's the overlap that we have there. So for the placket, if you want, you can actually add a button and a buttonhole on this part, or you can just sew it together if you want, and you can also let it just loose, just like this. So the next thing you just need to do is to fix a sleeve of your choice to this. And like I said, the back does not have any design, so I'm going to turn the back now so that we can see it's just a regular back. The only design that we have is all in the front. So this is what the back look like. You can see the collar, and then the placket that went to the back is just going to serve as the stand, as a collar stand for your collar. You can see, so this is the collar for the back, and then you can see the back. You can see the back pattern is just a regular back panel, and I have seam at my center back because my fabric was not enough, so I had to manage it. I used just 2 yards of satin fabric for this, so you have to be mindful of the fabric you use. So you can use silk or crepe for this as well, but I have satin fabric, which is what I used to make mine. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.